Welcome to episode 140 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to Scott McCaughey from supergroup The Baseball Project about their fourth studio album, Grand Salami Time. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to legendary music manager Simon Napier Bell about his latest documentary, George Michael, Portrait of an Artist. So check it out, and if you like the podcast, please subscribe on your favourite listening platform, give us a rating, and leave a comment. Before we begin, here's what's been happening on XS Noize this week.
We have a packed review section this week with albums from PJ Harvey, Green Chatton and more. Ian Byrne gives the new PJ Harvey album 4 stars, saying it's truly wonderful and unique, benefiting even further from producer Flood's use of field recording and audio samples. Rather than tackle bigger issues, Harvey changes scale and focuses on one person, a wood and a village, as the storyboard for Eye Inside the Old Year Dying, and Ian says it definitely works. Having led his band, Fontaines DC, on a meteoric rise, Green Chatton releases his debut solo album, Chaos for the Fly. Alex Hoggard gives 4 stars, saying Chatton's poetic lyrics lead to an intimate and honest record. There's new music streaming from Slowdive, David Gray, Charlotte Sands and Deacon Blue, and new tour dates from Foy Vance, Helmet, Depeche Mode and Rick Astley. Keep up to date at xsnoize.com.
Supergroup The Baseball Project have released their 4th studio album, Grand Salami Time. The band is made up of Steve Wynn from the Dream Syndicate, former R.E.M. members Peter Buck and Mike Mills, along with Linda Pitmon from Filthy Friends, Alejandro Escovedo, and Scott McCaughey from the -5 Young Fresh Fellows and R.E.M. In this interview, Scott McCaughey talks about writing and recording the album. We talk about baseball and what it was like being a member of R.E.M. for 17 years. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Scott McCaughey from the Baseball Project. So hi Scott, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Great, thanks to be here.
Great to have you. I always like to go back to the start with my guests. Can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
Well, the obvious answer is the Beatles, but there was a couple things before the Beatles that got me ready for the Beatles. I heard my dad brought home a record by Joey D called The Peppermint Twist. You know, it's like a dance craze for doing the twist. So that was like probably the first bit of like rock and roll beat that I heard that I got into. And then he brought home the Monster Mash album, which is all the Halloween songs done in the rock and roll styles of the early 60s. And so those are the first 2 records that are really, really got me. And then the Beatles happened, and then it was all bets were off. Once the Beatles came in, they gave me a form to understand what this music was. You know, it just, I mean, I didn't probably even understand it at the time because I was 9 years old, but you know, I just was feeling the rock and roll beat.
Well, I love the Beatles. I was born in 1974, but I would love to have been around when the Beatles first arrived and people first heard their music. Yeah,
and that was, you know, that I had the classic thing where we watched Ed Sullivan show, which was a Sunday night variety show. It was a big deal in the United States, and when the Beatles came over and were on that show, everybody watched it. Everybody fell in love with rock and roll, basically, you know. Then, so that was so I was there for that. I was a little kid, but I remember it very, very distinctively. You know, that it was a big turn on. You know, because before then, all I really cared about was you know, baseball and sports and you know, just games and playing with army men and stuff like that. You know, and then all of a sudden, this whole new vista opened up for me, you know. Little did I know that, you know, 60 years later, it was still doing the same thing to me. You know, it still is, still drives me. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned baseball. and your latest release is from your band, The Baseball Project. So, going back, when did the band form?
Well, I think Steve and I came up with the idea to do a record of songs about baseball in like 2007 or 2008, 2007, and we started recording pretty within a couple months. We got a bunch of songs together, and Steve and Linda made the commitment to come out to Portland, so we booked recording time. So that meant we were making the record. We were making a record. Plane tickets were bought, studio time was booked, and so we thought it was just going to be a one-off thing. We didn't have a name for the band or anything like that. We just thought maybe it would just be a one-off. We're going to do a record about baseball. And then Peter got in on it. He played on the record, and then we got a offer to play David Letterman's TV show like 8 months later. And we played on the show, and it went really well. And we just thought, this could be a really fun thing. Maybe we should keep it going. Maybe we should play some shows, and so it just sort of turned into a band like that. Yeah, but it was going to be a one-off originally.
There isn't many bands who perform in the Late Show with David Letterman and perform without even releasing any recorded material.
No, it was our first ever show too. The first time we played together, it was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing. Yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, who's in the current band, who plays on the album?
Well, it's Steve Wynn from the Dream Syndicate and his wife Linda Pitmon, who's an amazing drummer who plays with me and other bands like Filthy Friends and the -5, and she's played with Steve off and on for 30 plus years. And then we've got Mike Mills on bass from R.E.M. and Peter Buck on guitar from R.E.M. So, yeah.
And is the whole band baseball fans? Do you argue about your particular baseball teams?
I'd say 4 out of 5 of us. You can guess which one isn't the biggest baseball fan. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you can't guess. But 4 or 5 of us are really, really into baseball. And one of us is smart enough to not bother with sports in general, because sports is a big waste of time. It really is. But I can't help it, because I just grew up with baseball and I love it so much, and I love the stories. And now us having a band that sings about baseball kind of gives us a license to waste more time with baseball. So in the van, Steve and Mike and I and Linda to a degree are all in a fantasy baseball league. So we're on our computers, on our phones, we're making moves, we're trading players, we're keep managing our teams as we're driving down the road to our next gig. So we're in competition too.
Well, over here in the UK, it's soccer or football, as we call it, and we have fantasy football leagues as well. Right. Exactly the same thing.
Yeah, and people get really intense about those. We like to keep ours pretty good natured. There's no money involved or anything like that. It's just it's a fun thing, and we've got people from other bands are in the league, like Ira Kaplan from Yola Tango is in the league, and Steve Malcolmus is in our league, and Steve Berlin from Los Lobos is in our league. So we've got it's pretty fun group of people.
What ambitions did you have in the beginning for the band?
Well, none really. We just thought it'd be really cool to put out a record of songs about baseball. I mean, first of all, we were thinking, well, most people who are into indie rock are kind of don't care about sports so much, they're too cool for that. But our fans aren't that cool anymore, I guess. So some people don't really understand why we're going on and on about baseball, but all the people who like our music from the other bands tend to like the music from the Baseball Project, because the music is straight ahead, rock and roll, folk rock. It's the kind of thing that we've always done. And so even people in Europe who don't care about baseball, they seem to enjoy the music, to a degree. So I guess I wouldn't say that we had the ambition that would happen, but as it's gone along, it makes sense to us that we're not really spreading the gospel of baseball because we don't really agree with everything that happens in baseball, and our songs could be critical or make fun of baseball, or make fun of people. Some of them are very, very straightforward and paying tribute to players or teams, but we also have a little bit of cynicism and a little bit of poking fun at the game and stuff like that. So it's not like it's like a sacred mission to promote baseball. It's not like that at all. It's just we love it. We love baseball. We love all the foibles and all the things that are wrong with baseball too. We like it's a platform, I guess. Yeah. But mainly, it's just fun. It's fun to play music. It's fun to play music with your friends, and we take every opportunity we can to get together. With all five of us are really close friends, and we just love to play music together. So it's another way to do it. No,
I agree with what you're saying. Being from the UK, I don't know anything about baseball or its history, but I love the songs on the new album, Grand Salami Time, and the stories, which makes me want to investigate the game further. Mm-hmm. And I suppose the songs on the album could relate to other sports. Journeyman, for example, could relate to soccer, football.
Right, exactly. Yeah, Journeyman is a really brilliant song that Steve came up with, because not only is it describe people in sports who are kind of on the fringe, they're never really a star player, they're just plugging holes, and they go from town to town. It's also kind of like a musician, somebody like me who maybe is on the outskirts of the thing. I've never been a star player, but I've always been playing with, providing support for other bands, other musicians, doing some of my own thing, but so it's like Steve kind of equated being a journeyman in baseball and sports as like being a journeyman in music, in music too, which is really, I thought it was really great.
As it's your fourth album as the baseball project, is it getting harder to write songs about baseball?
People ask me that, and in a way I say yes, because I felt like the first album and the first two, we really knocked out a lot of the classic legends of baseball. We hit a lot of the biggies, and I thought, where are we going to go from this? But then the more we thought about it, the more we thought the game is, for one thing, it's still constantly happening. It's still constantly evolving. There's still new stories every year. So we didn't really have any excuse to say it's, the well is going to dry up, because there's always more stories coming up, and there's always more stories from the past. I mean, you're talking 160 years of baseball, so there's a lot of material still to be messed with, and so I think I feel like there's a point to what you said, and I think it does get a little harder, but if you dig a little deeper, there's always more going on. So I think we came up with good subjects this year.
One of my favorite songs on the album is Disco Demolition, which I was aware of this story of Steve Dahl, a Chicago DJ who'd been fired by a local radio station when the station transitioned to an all disco format. So he decided to blow boxes of disco records up at Comiskey. Tell me if I'm pronouncing this, by the way. Comiskey Park, home of the Chicago White Sox.
Comiskey, yes.
He decided to blow up boxes of disco records at Comiskey Park, home of the Chicago White Sox. I knew about that.
Yeah, well, that was a famous one, and I'm kind of surprised it took us 4 albums to get to that, because that was a really, really big story, and it made perfect sense. But Steve came up with the idea, like, I'm going to write a song about it, and it's going to be a disco song. And I was like, going, okay, well, none of us are really. It's not our number one format of music the way we play music. But Steve was convinced we could pull off a disco song, and he was right. We did. And it's a great song. I love it. I love the whole story. It's amazing. And, it's a really fun song, but we also wanted to touch on the fact that, in hindsight, the anti-disco backlash could be viewed as being racial or class oriented, so we wanted to address that a little bit, which Steve did in the song. But we also wanted to be a fun song. So we crossed. I think we covered the bases pretty well on that one, so to say. Yeah.
Screwball is another one of my favorites. What's the story behind that track?
Well, part of the things that people ask about how it's harder to write songs about baseball nowadays is that the players are a little more boring, I don't know if you get that in football in UK too, but there's so much pressure to be perfect and to not mess up and to be always at the top of your game. So I think, to make it in this world in sports, you have to kind of be that kind of guy, a little bit boring, and you have to be, you're not going to theoretically go out and get drunk every night. When you're on tour with the team or whatever, it's so you have to put all your energy into just being perfect every day to be at best at the game. And so I think players are a little more boring nowadays. Whereas back in the old days, you had like a lot of screwballs who were just people who were nutty. They were a lot of people who played baseball weren't well educated. They came off the farm or they came out of the slums in New York or whatever, and so they had really interesting lives, and they would do kind of nutty things, during the season. And so that was one of the ideas, was to write about there's not enough screwballs in the game anymore, because I miss all these old characters from the old time baseball thing. The parallel with it was there's a pitch called a screwball that a pitcher can throw that used to be used a lot, and now it is lost favor. It doesn't use it anymore because they think it hurts your arm too much or something like that. So I was doing a parallel between missing the screwballs characters from the old days and missing and why doesn't people throw that pitch anymore? It's kind of like a reach, but but that's what I do with songs. I try to mash things together, Yeah,
it's a great track. Really enjoy it.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Yeah. It was the screwball that I was mostly talking about in the song was a guy called Rube Waddle, who was a pitcher for the Philadelphia Athletics and a bunch of other teams in like the early 1900s. And he was a total certified crazy guy, but he was a great pitcher. So it kind of was inspired by his exploits was the initial point of it. Yeah.
With so many amazing musicians in the band, they're called a supergroup. What was the songwriting process for this album? Was it recorded in a studio? Was there some parts recorded remotely?
This was like the first record in a number of years that any of us were able to record together in a room. That's why it was so amazing, because Peter and I had been making records remotely for the first couple of years of 2020 and 2021. We made a lot of music, but we did it remotely. And we made a couple records with Luke Haynes from the UK. We made a couple records with him without ever even really meeting him or being in a room with him. We made 2 whole albums with him, and Linda played on those too. But this one was one where we kept having to reschedule it because of the COVID thing, but we finally had a little window in, I think, May of 2022, I guess. Yeah. Where we finally were all able to go back to North Carolina, get together, get in a room together, play the songs. And it was just so amazing to do that, because we'd missed it so much, and we'd all just watched the Beatles, Get Back series that came out. And we're like going, God, remember where you go into a studio and you sit together and you make music like together? And so it was fantastic to be able to do that and to go to do it with Mitch Easter, who worked on the first couple R.E.M. records, get Mike and Peter back into that vibe again, where they were first creating music in a recording studio with Mitch. It was just fantastic. So we tracked all 15 songs as a full band, just, played the songs, all 5 of us, got an arrangement, went out, banged it out. And, after that, every time we finished a song, it sounded like it was a record, just immediately. So we didn't have to piece anything together. The only thing we got, I sent a track to Steve Berlin in Portland to add baritone sax because he wasn't around. So he added that bit. But otherwise, we did it all right there in the studio, all to get playing together as a band, and it was just such a great experience.
Yeah, you mentioned
granted that, but then you take that for granted until like a couple of years where you can't do it, and I was like, wow, yeah. So it was amazing, yeah. Yeah,
you mentioned Mitch Easter, legendary producer. He produced R.E.M's debut EP, Chronic Town, and their debut album, Murmur. What did Mitch bring to the sessions and the recordings?
Good stories, lots of good stories, and no, he brought everything to it. He was just like such a relaxing guy to work with, and he knows. It's funny because he knows the way Mike and Peter work, even after 40 years. I mean, he'd done work with Mike in the meantime, but Peter hadn't done anything with him for a long time. But they'd always played together. They got together, and we did things with Big Star Third and stuff with Mitch like that. But he's just a facilitator. He's like the kind of perfect producer. What I see as a producer is somebody who just gets you to play the songs and do it and be happy with them. He doesn't have to tell you. He knows he might have ideas for arrangements and so on, but he knows with us, we pretty much know exactly what we want, and we put things down, and it's just his job to just make it happen and keep it moving. And he was amazing at that. And it was he's just a great guy, and a great situation with his studio out there, kind of in the country a little bit. And we're staying on site, so it's just 24 hours a day, just throw yourself into the music, which was just fantastic. Yeah. Mitch is great. And he's kind of winding down. He's kind of thinking about retiring a little bit. So he wants to just spend time on his music now, because he's been recording bands and bands and bands forever and ever and ever. And he probably has neglected his music a little bit, because he's a great guitarist, singer, and songwriter and everything. So I think he wants to devote some time to that. So he's not going to be doing as many outside projects, but we were really happy we got it under the wire to do that with him. Yeah.
And the band are going on tour in August, I believe. Where will you be playing? A lot of live shows? Where will they be?
We're doing a whole month all across the USA, from starting in Georgia, going up across to New York and Boston and everywhere in between, and then out to Chicago. And then that takes a whole month. We end up in Memphis there. And then we take a couple of weeks off and we do a week on the West Coast. So that's probably about all we're going to get to do. But 5 weeks of recording of touring is a lot for us. It's hard to get us all together for a big block of time like that, but we managed, and it's going to be really fun, really fun. No thoughts of going to Europe yet. We've talked to somebody about going to Japan in the spring or something like that, but who knows if it'll happen. But I shouldn't say that the 5 of us will probably all be in Norway in March for this little festival we do. But I don't know if we'll play as the Baseball Project at that. We have done, but we might be shining the light on our other projects this time. But
fingers crossed, maybe.
Yeah, I would love to come play in the UK and in Europe. It'd be awesome. It'd be really fun. I think we could get away with it. We played some shows early on in the day. We played in Spain, we played in Italy, we played in Croatia, we played in Holland. So we did a little Baseball Project tour, but to some bewilderment, but but some shows were incredible too. We played a festival in Split, Croatia, which was just wild. There's thousands of people going crazy, so who knows.
You were a member of R.E.M. from 1994 until the band's breakup in 2011, contributing to studio albums such as New Adventures in Hi-Fi, Up, Reveal, Around the Sun, Accelerate, and Collapse Into Now. So how did you get the R.E.M. gig?
I got to be pretty friendly with Peter when they came to Seattle to spend a month working on what record was it? Automatic for the People. They were working on that record there, and he gave me a call because we'd met over the years, in Athens and on the road as you do. And he just called. We started hanging out, and but we started playing acoustic music together, just strumming guitars together because the Young Fresh Fellows weren't really busy then. We're kind of winding down, and I wanted to do a side project, so I came up with this idea of the -5, which was to be psychedelic folk music, and it was going to be whoever wasn't going to be a real band. It was just going to be a project. And so I started doing that with Peter, and John and Ken from the Posies were in on it a lot from the beginning. And so we just started doing that. And then we just found that we liked playing together and liked playing with a lot of other people. And when they were going to ramp up to go back out on tour again, they wanted another musician. And Peter thought I would be good. He made it clear that he wouldn't ask me if it was going to break up the Young Fresh Fellows. He didn't want to be that guy. He didn't want to do that. So I said, well, we're not really doing anything right now, so I could take a year, because we don't have anything really in mind. We were kind of winding down a little bit at that point. We're in a slow period, and so I said, yeah, I'll try. And so I tried out. Everybody had ideas. They had 6 or 8 people, maybe more, 12 that they tried out. But, Peter had been playing with me a lot, so he was really comfortable with me. So he brought me down to LA and I tried out, and everybody liked me. And, the whole thing was they didn't want some flash player, they didn't want a hotshot guitar player or anything like that. They just want somebody who will support the songs. And they knew that I could play bass, that I could play keyboards, I could play guitar. So they want somebody who can just kind of jump around and fill in the little holes, of the songs they're doing, So that's how I got in, and I was lucky just to be able to stay with it the whole rest of the time. I was just signed on for the Monster tour, but then it just, of course, we ended up making a record while we were on the tour doing New Adventures in Hi-Fi. And then just kept going from then, and they kept inviting me to come to the sessions, and just felt like part of the band for sure. It was an amazing experience. It was so great. Some of the greatest shows ever were in Ireland too. I'll tell you, we had the R.E.M. fans in Ireland were so amazing, so crazy and so great. Had some incredible shows there.
Yeah, you played the Olympia in Dublin for a lot of nights in a row, and actually recorded.
Yeah, we did. We did a record there, which I think is maybe the best document of no pun and words there, but it's maybe the best document of R.E.M. music over the. It's like such a great live album. I don't know if people really even know it, but we were going back and we were playing these old songs every day. We would learn them and play them that night. And we weren't doing the hits really. We were just doing the new record every night, which wasn't released yet. And a lot of weird old songs. It's just such a storming live record. It's incredible. Yeah. So we did like 5 nights at the Olympia, and they made a live record out of it. That's just phenomenal. Yeah, it's great. We've got 2 live records from Dublin. There's one from the Point too, on the Around the Sun tour, which is really good too. Really good too.
What's your favorite studio album of R.E.M. that you've worked on?
Wow, that's a tough one. I'm gonna say Collapse Into Now, but it's really a toss up. But Collapse Into Now, I just think we had a really beautiful thing going on there, and the songs are kind of it kind of got back to what it's like a perfect distillation of the new REM, the one after Bill Berry left, where we got into a little more experimental stuff and things, and then we went back to full on rock with Accelerate, and then I think Collapse Into Now was kind of to tie it all together. It had the beautiful melodic side of REM, and it had the fierce good two guitars, bass and drums attack too. So I think it's a really perfect distillation of the REM sound, and the songs are so good on that record. And maybe I feel like it got overlooked a little bit because the band broke up. We didn't play any of the songs live or anything like that, which was a shame. But it's hard because I have a really soft spot in my heart for Up, because that was the first record I really threw myself into, working on that a lot. And Reveal is a phenomenal record. Around the Sun, I like that one too. That one gets a lot of flack, but those were great sessions. We had a great time doing that. And Accelerate was just a breath of fresh air at that point, just to get out the electric guitars and just cranking. So they all have really, really special spots for me, and the live records too, which are great too. So yeah, it's hard for me to pick.
I must dig that live album out and give it a listen again.
Yeah, I wasn't even expecting it, because I was under so much pressure when we were doing the record, because we were auditioning the new songs and trying to see which ones were working, which ones weren't. And then every day we'd go down there to soundcheck. We'd soundcheck for 2 or 3 hours, and they say, well, let's come up with some other different songs to play tonight, because we're playing 5 nights in a row. We didn't want to play the same thing every night. So we kept going back to the really ancient REM catalog, and I didn't know any of those songs. And so Bill Rieflin and I knew them from hearing them, but I didn't know how to play them. So Bill Rieflin, and the drummer, and I were just on the spot every day, learning so many songs and every night we went out and played all these different songs. And I had no idea till I heard the record, which came out a year or two later, that it was so good, because I figured it was really loose, but man, it's just, we were just on fire. And Jackknife Lee did a fantastic job at putting the record together. But it's just, I was blown away when I heard that record. I couldn't believe it. It was just such a good, a great record. I had no idea,
Just a few more questions, Scott.
Sure.
I like to ask my guests the following questions.
Okay.
If you could go back and relive one musical moment from your career, what would it be?
Oh boy. That's a really hard one. One of the things I think of is when I played at the Crocodile, a club in Seattle, where I played with Yoko Ono. And and that was Mike Mills and I got up on stage, and she was playing a show there with Sean Lennon, her son, and the great band, Russell on drums, just a great band. And we got asked to get up and play on a song, and we got to play on Mine Train from her double album Fly. And and she looked over at me and gave me the nod to kind of play a solo, and I went crazy on piano. And I just have a feeling that when she looked at me, she really approved. She really approved of my crazy piano playing, and I was really in the spirit. And that was an amazing moment for me. It really did. So that's one that I would like to experience that again. It's funny because you'd think there would have been some other time when I was fronting a band or whatever. And there's a lot of things too, with the Young Fresh Fellows, some great moments, -5 great moments, Baseball Project great moments. And of course, so many times the REM doing Everybody Hurts at Glastonbury, like at the end of the night, that was just unreal. Just there's certain experiences like that you but there's been so many of them for me, which is kind of amazing, and some of the greatest moments were when you're playing in front of 10 people too, so it's just, it depends on where you go, where you go with. But yeah, I'd like to go back, and I still have a picture in my moment of Yoko looking over at me and going like, yeah, all right. That was a great moment for me.
For us music fans, music is the soundtrack to our memories. What song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
Oh man, there's so many songs that tick off certain things. I remember, like, whenever I hear "Yes It Is" by the Beatles, I flash to being in a little room, in a living room in the middle of the night, dancing with friends and being on LSD. Which is a weird song because it's not a trippy song, but it just happened to be the moment when I realized this is a great song. It was one that, and so certain things like that just kick in. Trying to think of other examples. There's just I don't know, there's so many. I don't know, the memories they do tie together with I don't know. That's just one that popped into my head. There's just many of those, but I don't know why I would mention that one, but it's just certain songs that just tick off certain things. And that's one of them. Yeah.
That's me finished, Scott. Is there anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up? What's coming next for the baseball project? Any other solo projects or whatever?
Yeah, well, Peter and I just got back from the UK and Norway, where we did a little tour with the -5 and the No Ones. And the No Ones is our yet another band we started with a couple of guys from I Was a King, a Norwegian band. And so we just did a little tour of that, and we played Leeds, Manchester, London, where else? Cardiff, and Knockholt. And that was really, really fun. So that record's getting a lot of really great notices, the No Ones. So that's a great thing I'd like to mention. You should check out that song, the My Best Evil Friend, on Yep Rock. And we put out a new -5 record, which is a lot of paying tribute to Neil Young. And I've got another record coming out in November, paying tribute to Neil Young. I do a lot of covers of his songs in the basement, which I started doing during the pandemic. And I get people to play on them, and I write songs about Neil Young too, so it's not all covers. And I've got a -5 record coming out next summer. That's mostly recorded, and just a lot of stuff like that. Baseball project I don't know what we're going to do after this tour. We might go to Japan. We probably won't make a record for a while, because Peter's going to be doing a lot of work in Brazil next year. So he's plays with this guy named Nando Reis, who's a big pop star down there. And Peter's doing a lot of, he's more of a rock star, not a pop star, but working with him like a lot of next year. So that'll probably, mean a little more downtime for me, which is fine. I'm okay with that. And
You've been very busy. You've been very busy.
Yeah, and I don't really ever take downtime. When I say it's downtime, I'm going to be in the basement writing songs and recording them, And so I probably will keep doing that until I die. One would like to think. Hopefully it won't be too soon.
Well, Scott, thanks very much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. So much insight. Really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm not a little bit more well spoken. I'm not the best at it these days, but I did all right.
No, you've been absolutely fantastic. It was great.
Thank you. It was great questions. Great questions from you too.
Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
No, I really enjoyed it. Loving the album, and I wish every success with it.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, man.
Okay, Scott, take it easy.
Yeah, take you. Bye.